Catherine Leach is an outstanding designer that through her work as a creative communicator is changing the way our community interacts with our oceans. I visited her on her Kirribilli studio on the Sydney Harbour, where we talked about the change she's making in the world and the impact that being a change maker is having in her life. Hi Kat, and thank you for joining me today. As part of Catfish Creative, what is the change you want to make in the world?
My design business, Catfish Creative, is focused around marine conservation. So I guess my ultimate vision would be bountiful protected oceans for the future of the planet and the next generations to enjoy. And through design being that conduit for that change.
Why do you think this is a change the world needs to make?
It's very much a worldview. If you look at the oceans, we very much live on a blue planet. They take up 2/3 of the world surface. When you look at it from an aerial perspective, we live on a blue earth, and basically a third of the air that we breathe is because of the oceans. So it's very much it's not a one-way thing where we have to take care of the oceans. It's that the oceans actually take care of us, and I just believe that we're kind of missing out on the paying back.
How did you decide that this change is the one you needed to make?
I think it came from a history of my growing up by the ocean in West Wales and Pembrokeshire. Every day after school in the summer months we'd run home and take our togs off the line and run down to the beach, and I've always had this connection with the sea, and I think that the passion is definitely built out of that. And through my career I've moved through lots of different avenues and workspaces and corporate world and not-for-profit, and I keep coming back to the same emphasis that the ocean is where I get my drive and passion. The inspiration, I guess, to become involved with the oceans has been spurred on by a few different experiences that I've had through my career. And I guess the ultimate point that led me to where I am now was in 2009. So I set up Catfish in 2008, and I was operating as a design business, and I had various different clients in different spheres and from different areas of business and government. And whilst I was enjoying being in the creative space and working for myself for the first time, I wasn't really getting a lot of satisfaction out of the work that I was doing. So I was developing designs for messages, but it was mostly about business, and the end result, I guess, was helping people to promote what they do. And I guess that just wasn't enough for me. I didn't really realize it at the time. And then in 2009, a good friend of mine invited me to see the TED Wish, which was being shown at a cinema, and it was all of the TED Wishes that had been submitted. And there were some beautiful stories on there. There was a world orchestra that somebody wanted to create, and there was just some gorgeous little examples of people's wishes. And then Sylvia Earle came on and just blew me away completely with her wish. I guess I didn't realize how much it was going to resonate with me that evening. And yeah, so she called out and made a wish that to increase the amount of marine reserves on our planet through collaboration. So whether you be an architect, a designer, thought leader, innovator, engineer, whatever it may be that you do, is to in some way come together and create change for our oceans. Being that only 0.1% is actually protected in marine reserves, and not all of those are meaningful no-take zones. And so I guess I walked away from that, and that's when I realized that marine is where I wanted to be. And the next day I just changed my business model completely. Started emailing all of the marine conservation organisations that work in Australia and locally, and set up meetings immediately and offered pro bono so I could get in and understand how it works, and then from there it's kind of just snowballed. But I guess that was my pull in to connect with my kind of core beliefs.
How difficult has your journey as a change maker been?
It's funny, I think, how you look back on things when you're in a good place. And I think you tend to forget and the pain parts of development. So if you were to zoom me back in time to the beginnings and, you know, trying to make connections and find the right spaces to be, and, you know, not making a lot of money and scraping by and having to pay your rent, and I think there was, you know, a certain level of anxiety, also of stepping out of the structure of paid work and stability and the knowledge that you're getting a wage every month. It's huge. It's huge. Now I reflect on it and I feel like it was the natural thing for me to do. But if I'm really honest, at the time it was really difficult. It was a real challenge to go and suddenly be out in the world, just you on your own. So I think it has been a bit of a struggle, but ultimately it's paid off to the point where it's kind of exceeded my expectations.
What have you gained and what have you lost?
I've lost the structure and the support and the stability of working for one organisation that pays your bills, and I think that's underplayed a lot. I think a lot of people who go into the freelance world and are working for themselves, it's a huge step to take, but what you gain is exponential. I think having the freedom to be creative without and shatter your own glass ceilings by not having anyone else gauging and guiding you, I think is just enormous. I think the possibilities are endless, and then you forge your relationships through your journey with who you want to be involved. So you kind of only sort of funnel through the most passionate stuff for you. So I just believe that what you gain is a lot of opportunity and freedom. And yeah, I guess freedom's probably the word. And what that enables for you to be able to iterate and change and be dynamic is really huge.
What obstacles have you had to overcome, and how have they shaped your strategy to achieve the change you are after?
See, really, if I think on it, I don't think there's any obstacles standing in my way. I think there's maybe challenges about the space that I work in, maybe that I have had to overcome, rather than things that have blocked me from achieving. And I think those obstacles are probably in the lines of working with organisations who, I guess, they're trying to create change in the world, and that's massive and intangible and hard to measure and difficult to manage. And I guess that the way you overcome that is that you are just dynamic and you're ready to flow and move and transition all of the time. And I think you just have to learn to be a bit fluid about what you're doing and be willing to change and evolve as you need to, and help your clients do that too, I think.
Why you do what you do, and why do you keep doing it?
It's funny, it is a bit of a snowball effect, I think. You know, once you get into a certain space and then you learn more about that space. So with marine conservation, it might be the sustainable seafood movement, and then that evolves into other areas of sustainability and eating ethical foods and organic food and not eating meat. And it's one of those things, the more that you care, the more you find there is to care about. And it just keeps you moving and moving and keeps inspiring you, and it makes you realize that whilst over here you're helping to enable people to create change and empower people and fix things, there's also all these other things to fix. So once you see stuff, you definitely can't unsee it, which is a blessing as well as a curse sometimes. But the motivation is just constantly there to move forward, and then you meet people who are super inspiring, and it's not even that, it's just a natural motivation, I think, the more involved you get with things. And the same with the ocean plastics as well. That was something that I touched on with one of my projects once, and I was a bit confused about it and didn't know that much about the problem. And then within a year of being involved with a few different organisations, I found myself living plastic free for a month every year, which has now evolved to 3 months every year. And it's embedded itself within my life. So you kind of end up walking the talk, and it becomes a natural evolution. That
What is your reward?
work is definitely seeing that, you know, the tangible booklet, the printed sustainable seafood guide, and having friends tell me they've downloaded the app. It's seeing a bus drive past with an ad about sustainable seafood, or whether it be something I've done for a charity. So seeing your art in motion and seeing people engaging with it is huge. Also talking to people about projects and them having seen what I've done and have been engaged with it, or people creating change in their own lives as by being inspired by what you're doing, whether it be within their work, within your workspace or lifestyle. Yeah, I just think it's because I work in a spot that it's very hard to measure the impact that you've had through the design work you've done or the projects and campaigns you've worked on. It's beautiful when you do get some tangible results from that. They're the rewards, I think, knowing that something's worked.
And where do you get your strength from to continue?
I want to say Pilates. But there's something in that. I think that, you know, you have to stay mentally agile, and you have to be ready for, you know, change all the time, and you have to be ready to work on your own and just keep motivating yourself. But also you've got to stay fit, and you've got to eat the right foods, and a lot of it is about energy too. So yeah, when you're that inspired, you've got to kind of keep up with the pace. So
where does your driving force come from?
My driving force, I have to say, would be connecting with the seas in whatever level that might be. It might be stand-up paddleboarding down at Balmoral and seeing a penguin floating by, or diving with whales in Tonga, which is incredible. My reconnection is definitely diving and being in the ocean. And even if, I mean, there was a seal over at on the stairs of the Opera House. I don't know if you heard about it, but I'm a member of the Orca Foundation, and they go out and they rescue ocean mammals and anything in strife, or just monitor to make sure that they're well and don't need assistance, and so they do call out. So I got called out to check out this fur seal, and even just engaging with the ocean in any way and its creatures is totally my driving force. And I'll come back off a diving holiday and just can't wait to get stuck into the next campaign. So design's definitely and creativity is massive for me too. I love designing art and creating things, but the driving force behind it is definitely being in the sea. Yeah.
What inspires you, Kat?
My family, the people directly around me, my boyfriend, Tom, my dear friends, and being around other people, change makers in the world, people who are really at their heart focusing on people and the planet and making the world a better place. I mean, I'd love to say something else that sounds less cheesy, but it is just that. It's people who realize that, you know, it's not about place belonging to us, it's about us belonging to a place, and whether that be with people or in nature, and anyone who drives towards that stuff and I guess believes in me and what I'm doing, it's a constant inspiration source. Yeah.
How successful do you believe you've been as a change maker?
There's no measurables in this sphere, I think, but I do believe that whilst you don't have a return on investment figure for everything that you do, there's just you have to maintain a belief that what you do makes a difference. So there's no direct way of answering that, but I think my true belief is that if you spend your time on your art, whether that be writing, painting, designing, engineering, you have the opportunity to weave sustainability and messages about conservation, environment, humanity into the broader fabric of the world. And I think whilst that might not be measurable, it's so worthy. So it's a very difficult question to answer, but at the same time, I think you just have to constantly believe that what you're doing is working and creating change. Also celebrating the wins that you do see in a real way, and seeing that, you know, that difference is happening out there. And I think sometimes you get feedback from from campaigns and you hear about the way things have been received, and you realize that a certain amount of apps have been downloaded that you've designed, or something's gone gangbusters with with the youth movement, or there's times like that you can truly celebrate and realize that things have permeated in a really meaningful way. But for the most part, I think it's really hard to see how successful you've been, and I think maybe that's one of the frustrations as well, as you asked me earlier. One of the obstacles. I hadn't really thought about it in that frame when you asked the question before, but yeah, I think not being able to measure that stuff actually makes it a bit harder, but you've just got to kind of keep believing. Yeah.
What makes you successful, Kat?
I actually don't like using the word sustainability anymore. I think too many things hang off it. But I believe that if you're working in a space of making a difference or trying to drive positive change on an issue close to your heart, I think you owe it to yourself and the art that you create to be a sustainable business. So that means ensuring that you have a value that you add to you have a value for yourself and for what you do, and to drive that through whatever you do. So I think you just have to run what you're doing like a business. You have to, it's not all about being a not-for-profit or, not taking anything back. I think you have to manage your relationships in a way that's savvy so that you have longevity in what you're doing. And if you have a message to put out there in the world, you've got to be kind of strategic about how you work it so that you can continue, future-proof your business a bit and create, continue creating change and putting messages out there. And I think my view on sustainability really is helping those who are creating the change be sustainable in their messaging.
What would you consider your greatest achievement so far? And what do you think still remains to be done?
So much to be done. In just answering the last part, the more you find, the more you discover, the more you realize, it's like anything. You go traveling in part of Europe and you get there and it's amazing, and you meet all these people who've just traveled around the whole eastern part, which you're not planning to go to, and then you go away going, okay, that's something else I'm going to have to look at. And it's very much the same with this realm of work as well. The most successful, I don't know. I have spoken about the sustainable seafood movement a few times, and I think because we created a guide it's now in its third iteration, an app, a website, mini guides. I think as a complete package, looking at it from a design perspective, it's had a lot of really positive outcomes. And I've worked with the Australian Marine Conservation Society on that project, and they're a very focused group of individuals, very passionate about what they do. So I think because we had a big movement that we created through that, and that is now feeding in, I think, to lots of other movements that are happening around Australia in a really meaningful way. It's kind of like the jigsaw pieces are coming together around that, and there's some big collaborations happening at the moment around Label My Fish, which is Greenpeace, AMCS, and Sea Life Fund, Taronga Zoo, and lots of other companies coming together. So I think that feels successful to me because I feel like it's been a driving force for a lot of other things, and it was a really enjoyable project. I think success doesn't always have to be modeled on, how something's been uptaken or what the design looks like or how happy everyone was. It's how much you enjoy the process too. So it's, however you measure success really. But I also think something I've enjoyed a lot has been the journey about plastic pollution. It's been really, really interesting because it was something I didn't know anything about probably 3 years ago. And slowly but surely I'm now in a position where every time I pick up a piece of plastic or go shopping somewhere where there's, it's the unseeable, as I was saying earlier. It's like once you've seen enough and been privy to enough information about what's happening in the world, it just becomes so massive that you have to do something about it in whichever way that might be. And I think I think the plastic-free movement, and also that has led into some circular economy research that I've done with some really interesting people. I don't know, I think it just drives this kind of much bigger picture. So the plastic journey for me, I feel has been a really successful one in terms of the people that I've met through that process, the relationships I've had, where their businesses are going and how I'm working with them. So we've got Two Hands Project here in Australia. In Sydney, we've got Take 3 with Tim Silverwood, and I'm working with him on a campaign to engage youth more with what he does. And it's just, I find that I would say that's been a really big success, that area of work. And then moving into the circular economy, where that came out of that space, working with Tim and Candice Waterman on looking at basically taking our lives from a linear take, make, use, dispose. So the life cycle of, say, a bottled water, which has been made out of, the bottles are made out of oil and gas. The water's transported around the world, and then you buy it when you can have water out of the tap and filter it. You buy it for a price, and then you maybe drink half of it and then discard the rest of the product, and then you've then got this essentially a poison left in the environment. So I guess having gone through this whole product life cycle of things, the circular economy movement has kind of started through that, and I see that as a massive success. It's something that started in the UK and is now burgeoning into a big area here in Australia. So I would definitely see that as a success as well. As you can see, I haven't really pinpointed one thing as a standout, because I think there's merits in all of the different projects I've worked on.
How has your work towards change impacted your life?
I'm really busy a lot of the time. I'm very motivated. To be honest, it's driven. It drives me. It's not that it impacts my life. It's that, I'm living this now. It's not separate as an impact. I think it's kind of woven into my pathway a little bit, I think. And Catfish is very much a part of me, and my relationships with my clients are like friendships. So it's almost kind of it's not really a separate entity. So in terms of the way my life has changed since I've aligned more with my passion and purpose, I guess, is there's just a much more flow. And I guess I've realized as well that a lot of stuff is based around relationships and having good relationships with people and inspiring each other, motivating each other, and looking forward to what you can do next. And I think in terms of how my life's changed, I just feel really content with where I'm at and with what I'm doing. And I look back to that first year of Catfish, and I'd been out of the creative space for several years, not through choice particularly, just because moving to Australia and my visa and getting sponsorship meant that I moved into a different arena that wasn't design. So coming back in, I immediately thought that would fix everything and that I'd suddenly feel right because I was back designing and being creative again. But ultimately there was something more than that I needed, and I realized that quite soon. And I think it just gives you a sense of ease that whilst you can't do everything in a day and you can't change everything, it's like you're working towards a transition to better. And just knowing that all the time is, I don't know, it's just a really nice way to be, because getting there is not the objective. It's just moving in the right direction.
What impact has it had on your relationships with the people around you?
There's something about when you get involved with something that you're doing and you're passionate about it, there's an infectious nature to it. I think when your character is driven by enthusiasm around what you do and how you do it, I think it inspires others to find that same kind of enjoyment from their lives and their work too. And I constantly get, as I said, inspiration from others who are just doing amazing things and creative change and impact, and to be part of that, I don't think you realise it's happening, but then people will say things that, Kath, I don't drink bottled water anymore, or every time I see a piece of rubbish I have to pick it up, or oh, I saw a dolphin at this beach and I had to tell you, and people ring you, and you realize that your little seed that's planted in their mind about this thing, the kind of bubble that you've created around yourself it's not just you, it is inspiring other people in really gentle, lovely ways that kind of come back to you. And I think it does touch on other people, and I think it's a two-way street. I think, as I say, it comes right back to you, and you're constantly seeking out new ways to inspire yourself and new stories from other people about what they're doing that could be completely different, and their method of doing things. So yeah, it's almost like it's just got a big network out there, and we're all feeding off each other in really positive ways. So yeah, I think the inspirations are very much a two-way street.
Kat, what is the piece of advice you wish you would have gotten when you started your journey as a change maker?
Oh wow, just believe. That's it. Just believe. Ultimately, what you're doing is because it's a driving force within you, and you can constantly be bombarded with messages from the world that wants to keep you a small player and, you know, pay you a regular wage and keep you within the confines of your workspace. And I just think when you step out of that structure, it can be really, really scary, and you can lose that sense of belief in what you're doing. And there's so many pulls and pushes in the world that you kind of think, oh, I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And I think my advice would be definitely believe in yourself, and that's much easier said than done, I realize. But also I think it's just stay on your path, because you know ultimately what your path is, and you know that, you know, you might be tempted by a higher wage over here, but you don't really want the job, and you know that this is kind of where you want to be, and it may not pay as much money, but it's just kind of like staying on your track and being mindful of what that track is, and trying not to be distracted. And I look back and I think there's been a few times where I've wavered and felt like I needed to take some bigger money projects, and ultimately I've always missed out on opportunities to do much more fulfilling things. But that's constantly going to be a thing. You're constantly going to be fine-tuning. I'm still doing it now, 6 years on. So I think, it's just about really trying to stay true to your direction. No matter what's going on out here and these messages we're bombarded by, is just trying to maintain that sense of who you are and what you want to get done, regardless.
How would you think knowing that would have changed what you did?
I think if I had a mentor or someone guiding me that just said, don't listen to that stuff, carry on, what you're doing is beautiful and doesn't always reward you straight away, I think I would have just felt much more confident. I wouldn't have felt so stressed. I wouldn't have wavered from my objectives. Maybe I would have gotten to the point of being, you know, a fully functioning niched business earlier. I don't know. But I think it's not really about that kind of measured as a success. I think it's more about your mental attitude and how you, and that strength that you get out of, no, this is my thing that I'm doing, and that's not for me, that's for someone else. And that kind of line to be drawn in, it's a confident. I think I would have had more confidence. Yeah. I mean, things have evolved in such a way that it has driven me into this lovely pathway, and I just maybe think I would have got there earlier, but it's also that naivety early on. I think, if someone had told me, then it would have just been a bit easier.
And to finish off with the interview, what is your energy and your heart at the moment?
Looking forward actually to next year, to a trip to Antarctica. And I think, having sat behind my desk a lot and worked on lots of things, I'm ready to get out and be inspired by the environment again. And I also had an amazing time with my family in July. I went back to Wales and took my boyfriend home to Wales to meet my family, and a new little boy arrived, so I've got a nephew now. So I feel like my heart is very much obviously still in my business and with all my clients, but I've got to this beautiful stage at the moment of having engaged with my family again. Obviously I'm in a completely different country, so I feel like my heart has got into this space of being over doing. I think I've done a lot of doing and a lot of creation, and I just think at the moment it's about sitting back and looking at what's been done and taking it all in and being with the people that matter to you and spending time in good company. And no matter what you're doing, whether it's something that you're completely aligned with, or it's something that's just kind of functional because you have to, or you can get into a bit of a hamster wheel of doing sometimes, and what matters to you can kind of get a bit blurred, even if you're working on something that you directly feel matters to you. Personally, I think you just need to exist and be and in a certain space. So I think at the moment I'm just kind of seeking this peace about and reflection, instead of just continuing on with work, and actually being able to stop and smell the roses and celebrate successes, whatever they might be, personal, small, tiny things, or and I think maybe having a new little person entering the world kind of makes you really reflective. He's a beautiful little boy, William. Makes you reflective about just life in general and being together. So I think my heart is very much just trying to settle into where I'm at and being appreciative and authentic and grateful.